the storm that changed everything. The wind howled like a wild beast across the empty plains. Rain poured down from the dark alien sky, cold and sharp like needles. Ethan ran through the mud, his boots sinking with every step. His jacket was soaked, his fingers numb. He had only one thought in his mind: find shelter before nightfall. He had landed on this planet 2 days ago for a repair job. Nothing major, just fix a broken comms tower for the local settlers. But now, the tower was gone. Lightning had hit it, and his small shuttle had lost all power. He was stuck, alone, and the storm was getting worse. In the distance, a rocky hill stood like a giant. Ethan saw a crack in its side, a cave. It wasn't much, but it could be the difference between life and death tonight. Ethan reached the cave entrance and ducked inside. It was dark, cold, and smelled like wet stone. He took out his flashlight and clicked it on. The narrow beam lit up the cave walls, showing sharp rocks, some strange moss, and was that a bone? He didn't care. At least it was dry. He moved deeper, inside, setting his bag down. He opened a pack of dried food and chewed slowly, his eyes scanning the cave. That's when he heard it. A sound, a soft, shivering whimper. Ethan froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. It was a cry. Very slowly, he stood and pointed the flashlight toward the back of the cave. The beam flickered. Low battery. He shook it. The light returned, and what he saw made him gasp. Curled up near the back wall were 2 figures, a thin alien woman and a small child. Both looked weak, dirty, and half-starved. Their bodies were shaking, not just from cold, but fear. The woman growled low, baring her teeth. Her skin was a pale blue, marked with dark bruises. Her arms wrapped around the child protectively. Her clothes were torn. Her eyes, big and golden, glowed dimly in the dark, locked onto Ethan like a frightened animal watching a predator. Ethan slowly raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said calmly. "I didn't know anyone was in here." The woman didn't reply. She held her child tighter. The little one looked no older than 4, its tiny arms clutching its mother, cheeks sunken from hunger. Ethan slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a food pack. He tore it open, then placed it on the ground and pushed it toward them. He backed away. The woman didn't move at first, but after a few long seconds, the child crawled forward, shaky, slow, and grabbed the food. He looked at Ethan, then at his mother. She gave a weak nod. The child devoured the food in seconds. The woman stared at Ethan, unsure. Then she whispered something in a language he didn't understand. But her eyes, they softened, just a little. Ethan sat down near his own pack but stayed at a safe distance. He spoke again, voice low. "My name is Ethan. I'm human. I got stuck here in the storm. I don't mean harm." The woman blinked, then whispered, "Vera." He caught the name. "Vera. Is that your name?" She gave a small nod. The child had already fallen asleep, food still on his lips. The cave was quiet except for the rain outside. Ethan looked at them both. So thin, so broken. Who left them here? Why were they alone in such a dangerous place? He added a few dry sticks to a small fire he made. The light grew warmer. He gently turned the fire toward them. "I can stay on this side," Ethan said softly. "No threat, I promise." Vera didn't answer, but she didn't growl again either. She watched him with tired, careful eyes, as if deciding something deep in her heart. As the night grew darker, thunder rolled across the sky. Ethan leaned against the cave wall, unable to sleep. He knew one thing for sure. This storm didn't just bring rain, it brought a choice and maybe a new beginning. The storm outside didn't stop. The wind screamed through the cave's entrance like a warning. But inside, everything was still. except for the quiet breathing of three strangers forced to share the same space. Ethan stayed, near the fire, careful not to move too much. Every sound he made caused the alien mother to flinch. She didn't trust him. Not yet. The small child, now wrapped in a thin blanket Ethan offered, slept beside his mother, his tiny hands clutched, her torn clothing even in sleep as if afraid she might disappear. Vera hadn't spoken again since whispering her name. Her eyes never left Ethan. They were wide, golden, and full of fear. But behind that fear, something else flickered. Confusion. Maybe even hope. Ethan opened his bag slowly and took out another food pouch. He held it up, then gently placed it on the ground halfway between them. "You can take it when you're ready," he said softly. "It's safe." Vera didn't move. Minutes passed, then with a quiet hiss, she crawled forward just enough to snatch the pouch. She sniffed it, like an animal used to poison. Then she turned back, opened it, and fed it to the child first. She only ate what was left. Ethan watched them closely. They weren't just hungry, they were starving. And more than that, they looked hunted. He whispered, "Who did this to you?" Vera's eyes narrowed. She didn't answer. Instead, she did. Something unexpected, she growled. Not in anger, but in warning. "Please." She finally spoke, her voice cracked and dry. "Don't take us back." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Take you back? To where?" She didn't reply. She just pulled the child closer. Ethan's mind raced. Take them back? To what? A prison? A ship? A camp? Then he saw it. Under her shoulder, strap hidden by dirt and blood, was a deep branding mark. Not a birthmark, not a tattoo, a slave mark. Ethan felt cold. He looked at Vera and said quietly, "I'm not one of them." Vera stared, uncertain. He reached into his pack again and slowly pulled out an old ID chip. He slid it toward her. She picked it up and studied it, her hands trembling. It showed his name, Earth symbol, and service history. He had been a technician, a soldier once, now just a lost man trying to survive. "I don't trade people," he said. "I fix machines." Vera slowly lowered her guard. Not fully, but her shoulders eased a little. She whispered, "You? Not a buyer?" Ethan shook his head. "No." She blinked and looked down at her child. "He needs help," she said. "But I can't pay." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "You don't need to pay." There was a long silence. Then Vera whispered something in her language to the child. The little one stirred, looked up at Ethan, and then buried his face in his mother's arms. "He doesn't talk," she said quietly. "Since they killed his father." Ethan closed his eyes for a second. Rage twisted in his chest. Whoever these people were, whoever hurt them, they didn't deserve to breathe. "What's his name?" Ethan asked. Vera looked down. "Rin." Ethan nodded. "Hi, Rin, I'm Ethan." The child peeked up at him for 1 second, just one, but it was enough. A tiny spark of connection, a moment of trust. Outside, thunder cracked again. Inside, something else cracked too. The wall between them. Ethan pushed a small heat cube closer to them and said gently, "You're safe now." "I don't know how yet, but I'll help you." Vera didn't reply, but her eyes softened. She placed the ID chip beside the firelight, returning it with quiet respect. Then she whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Thank you, human." Morning light had not yet touched the sky, but inside the cave the fire had burned low. Ash curled softly in the air, and the sound of dripping water echoed from the cave walls. Ethan was awake. He hadn't slept much, just enough to keep going. He watched the two alien figures still huddled in the corner, Vera and her child, Rin. They had finally stopped shaking. For now. Ethan stood and stretched quietly. His back ached from sleeping on stone, but his heart ached more for what he had seen the night before. He walked to the cave entrance, pushed aside the damp vines, and looked out. The storm had passed. But what storm had Vera and Rin lived through? When he turned back, Vera was already sitting up. Her eyes met his. She looked tired, not just from the cold or the hunger, but from years of running. "Are they gone?" she asked softly. "Who?" Ethan replied. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she slowly lifted her sleeve. Ethan stepped closer, and what he saw made him stop breathing for a second. Scars. Dozens of them. Thin, burned lines across her arms and shoulders. Some old, some fresh. Symbols, numbers, wounds left not by war but by people. "You asked who did this," Vera said, her voice calm and empty. "Slavers, raiders, pirates. Call them what you want. They call us cargo." Ethan clenched his fists. She continued. "My mate Corin tried to escape with us. They caught him, made me watch." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. "They thought Rin was too small to matter. Left us for dead when we slowed them down." Ethan sat near the fire again. "Quiet. I don't understand," he said slowly. "How can people do that? And sleep at night?" Vera gave a bitter smile. "They sleep better when no one survives to tell the story." Rin stirred awake and sat up. His eyes met Ethan's, still quiet, still afraid. Ethan smiled and opened his bag. He pulled out a warm fruit bar, soft and sweet. He slid it toward the child. Rin looked at his mother first. She nodded. He took the food. He ate, this time, slower. Calmer, like his little heart finally believed maybe, just maybe, this human wouldn't hurt him. "He hasn't spoken since that night," Vera said, gently brushing Rin's hair. "He was loud before, always asking questions, always laughing." Ethan felt something heavy settle in his chest. He wanted to say something comforting, something brave, but he didn't. Instead, he reached for his toolkit. "What are you doing?" Vera asked. He smiled faintly. "Fixing my comlink. If I can power it, I can send a signal to the settlers on the other side of the valley. They'll help. They're good people." Vera looked uneasy. "Humans?" "Some of them," Ethan said. "Not all are slavers." She didn't answer, but she didn't stop him either. As he worked, Vera said something that caught him by surprise. "You're not like the others." Ethan looked up. "What makes you say that?" She touched the small heat cube he'd left near Rin. "Most wouldn't share this. Most would take what little we have, or worse." Ethan shrugged. "I'm just trying to do what's right." Vera stared at him long and hard. "That's not common out here." Silence returned. Only the clicking of his tools echoed now. Then Rin slowly crawled closer to Ethan. He sat beside him, quiet. Ethan paused. He handed the boy a small screwdriver and said, "Here, want to help?" Rin held the tool in his tiny hand. He didn't speak, but he smiled. It was small, but it was the first smile. Ethan felt something stir in his chest, hope, and something else, purpose. Night returned again, wrapping the hills in silence and shadows. The cave was quiet, too quiet. Only the soft crackle of firewood and the distant howl of some alien creature broke the stillness. Ethan sat near the entrance, his eyes scanning the dark land outside. The stars were clear now, but his mind wasn't. Something didn't feel right. Inside, the cave. Rin slept curled against his mother. Vera wasn't asleep. She sat upright, one hand around the child, the other resting on a sharp rock, just in case. She had learned to never sleep deeply. Not anymore. Ethan stood and walked back. "And I think something's out there." Vera's eyes sharpened. "Raiders?" "I don't know," he replied, sitting by the fire again. "But I've been watched before. This feels like that." Vera looked at Rin and lowered her voice. "Then we don't have much time." Ethan looked at her. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then spoke with calm strength. I want you to take him. Ethan blinked. What? If something happens, she said, her voice shaking. You take my child, you run, you don't stop. I'm not leaving you behind, Ethan said. Her voice rose just a little. He is all I have. If I die, he must live. Ethan looked into her eyes. Not fear, not weakness, a mother's fire. I'm not letting anyone take him, he said. Or you. She stared at him, searching his face. Then she whispered, Why? Because I made a promise, Ethan said, to myself, long ago. He leaned back and looked into the flames. I once failed someone who needed me, a child, not my own, but close. I couldn't save her. Vera said nothing. She listened. Swore I'd never freeze again, Ethan continued. Never turn away. That if I ever got another chance, I wouldn't let it slip. The firelight flickered on his face. And now, I think that chance is here. Vera looked down, her throat tight. For the first time in many years, she said softly, I believe you. Ethan nodded. Then trust me. We'll survive. Together. He pulled out the fixed comm device and showed her. This should send a ping signal. One burst, not enough to track, but enough for someone nearby to hear. You sure it won't bring the wrong people? She asked. Not sure, Ethan admitted. But we can't hide in a cave forever. He pressed the button. A soft hum echoed. Done. They waited. Seconds passed, then minutes. Nothing. Vera sighed and looked away. Ethan spoke gently. It might take a while. But before she could answer, Rin shot up from sleep. He pointed toward the cave entrance. His small voice, rough and raspy, cried out, Something's coming. Vera stood instantly, pulling Rin close. Ethan grabbed his blaster. The fire dimmed. The sound of metal scraping on stone echoed from outside the cave. Shadows moved. Not animals. Machines. The cave trembled with every mechanical footstep outside. Ethan pulled Vera and Rin behind a large rock near the back wall. He held his blaster tightly, heart pounding. His finger hovered near the trigger. Stay low. No noise, he whispered. Outside, something metallic scraped again. Slow, deliberate. A faint red light blinked across the cave wall. They were being scanned. Vera clenched her teeth. Her eyes locked onto the fire, now low and smoky. Too late to hide the heat signature. Someone, or something, was already here. Then it stepped into view. A scout drone, black, spider-like, with long metal legs and a single blinking red eye in its center. It turned its head slowly, scanning the cave. Its scanner let out a soft beep. It had found life. Vera held Rin tighter. Ethan whispered, Run if I tell you. No, Vera hissed. We stay together. The drone made a sharp noise, and then it spoke. Cargo detected. Category, escaped bioproperty. Initiate retrieval protocol. Ethan didn't wait. He fired. A sharp blast hit the drone's eye. Sparks flew. The machine twitched, staggered, then collapsed with a loud metallic crash. Smoke filled the entrance. More will come, Vera shouted. I know, Ethan said, grabbing his gear. We can't stay. They ran deeper into the cave, toward a narrow tunnel Vera once saw but never dared to enter. Ethan turned his flashlight on. The tunnel walls were rough, tight, and wet, but it was their only chance. Behind them, another mechanical screech echoed. Backup was coming. As they moved, through the dark, Rin clung to Ethan's back. Vera ran beside them. Her body was weak, but her legs moved like they had no choice. I used to hear stories about these tunnels, she gasped. My ancestors hid in them during the first slave raids. Then let's hope they still work, Ethan replied, breath heavy. They ran for what felt like forever. Then, light, a soft blue glow ahead. They entered a hidden chamber. It was ancient. The walls were marked with alien carvings, glowing symbols that pulsed gently as they passed. In the center was a cracked stone platform. What is this place? Ethan asked. A memory, Vera whispered, walking forward. She touched the carvings. They glowed brighter. Suddenly the floor shook, but this time it wasn't from machines. A panel opened behind the wall, revealing an old energy door and a faded console. A secret exit, Vera said, eyes wide. They built these in case the caves were overrun. Can you open it? I don't know, but I'll try. Ethan passed her the power cell from his toolkit. She fitted it in. The console blinked. But outside, the walls echoed again. The hunters were getting closer. Ethan raised his blaster. Then he looked at Rin, shaking, but silent, brave. If they come through, I stop them here, Ethan said. Vera turned. No. If you fight, we all die. We go together. A loud metallic voice rang from far behind the tunnel. Target located. Prepare to neutralize resistance. The console lit up green. The door hissed open. Go! Vera shouted. They rushed. Through. Just as Ethan turned to close the door, he saw red eyes rounding the corner. He slammed the panel. The door sealed shut. Silence. Only their breathing remained. They had made it, but not for long, because this was no longer about running. Now, it was time to strike back. The tunnel behind them was sealed, but the silence was not peaceful. Ethan's breath echoed in the narrow stone hallway. Vera held Rin's hand tightly, glancing back again and again. Even with the door shut, fear still chased them. The light here was dim, soft blue from glowing roots along the wall. The air was warm and smelled of old stone, dust, and something else. Age. This place was forgotten by time. They followed the path in silence, deeper into the ancient tunnels. Where does this lead? Ethan asked. Vera looked ahead, uncertain. I don't know. These tunnels were used by my ancestors. Old stories say they led to the wildlands. Ethan nodded. That's better than a cave full of raiders. They walked for a long time. Rin was tired, stumbling. Ethan lifted him onto his shoulders. The boy whispered something soft. Ethan didn't catch it. Vera froze. She turned and stared at Rin, wide-eyed. What did he say? Ethan asked. Vera's voice shook. He said, Papa. Ethan stopped walking. His heart skipped a beat. Rin rested his head on Ethan's shoulder. Small arms wrapped around his neck. He hasn't spoken since the night they took Corin, Vera whispered. And now, he calls you. I'm not trying to replace anyone, Ethan said quickly. I know, she said softly, smiling. But maybe your kindness gave him his voice back. They continued walking, deeper. The walls opened into a new chamber. What they saw stopped them in their tracks. It was an old sanctuary. Stone pillars, half broken. A pool of clear, glowing water in the center. And at the far end, a giant mural. Carved deep into the wall, it showed humans and aliens standing together, fighting side by side. What is this? Ethan asked, walking forward. Vera stepped beside him, eyes wide. I've seen drawings like this in old teachings, legends. They say, long ago when our people were hunted by the Sky Lords, humans came. They were warriors, protectors. Ethan stared at the carving. One human had a child on his back. The alien beside him had markings just like Vera's. But history forgot, she said. Or maybe someone wanted us to forget. Rin walked to the pool, staring. At his reflection, his small voice said again, Papa. Ethan knelt beside him. He smiled. Maybe I was meant to find you, Ethan whispered. Maybe the storm wasn't a mistake. Vera looked at both of them, tears gathering in her eyes. Then suddenly, a sound, footsteps. Not metal this time, but soft, heavy, close. Ethan stood fast. He raised his blaster. From the tunnel behind them, a tall figure appeared. It was not a machine. It was a cloaked alien, hooded, with glowing eyes. Staff in hand, Ethan stepped in front of Vera and Rin. Who are you? He shouted. The figure raised a hand. "No harm," it said in deep, slow words. "We have been watching." "Watching who?" Ethan asked. The figure looked at Rin. At him. The child. Vera held Rin close. "Why?" The figure stepped into the light and revealed an old, weathered face marked with the same scars as Vera. "Because he is the last of the bloodline," the figure said. "And he has returned with a protector." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" The old alien's eyes glowed brighter. "It means the fight is not over," he said. "And it's time you remember who you are, human." The ancient figure's words echoed through the glowing chamber. "It's time you remember who you are, human." Ethan's mind raced. He had come to this planet for a simple repair job, a quiet life, a quiet escape. Not this. He stepped forward. "I'm no hero. I fix things, that's all." The elder looked down at the child, Rin, then back at Ethan. "Sometimes what's broken is not a machine. Sometimes what must be fixed is hope." Vera stepped beside Ethan. She held Rin's hand tightly. The elder continued. "This child is of the last royal line of the old resistance. His blood carries the voice of the fallen. The slavers fear him because if he lives, our people remember." Ethan looked at Rin, who clutched his hand now, not out of fear, but trust. "Why, me?" Ethan asked. "Why did I find them?" "You didn't find them," the elder said with a small smile. "You were meant to." The fire inside the chamber grew brighter as old carvings on the walls lit up, one by one. A glowing path appeared, along the floor leading toward a deep stone corridor. "What's down there?" Farah asked. The elder replied, "An old sanctuary, a hidden passage to the surface, to the forgotten camps where others still wait in the shadows. If you lead, they will follow." Ethan nodded slowly. "So you want me to be some kind of symbol?" "No," the elder said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We want you to be yourself. That was enough to save a mother, a child, and soon, a people." Ethan looked back at Vera. She gave him the smallest nod, not begging, not asking, just believing. He turned to Rin. "You ready, little guy?" Rin smiled. "Yes, Papa." The word hit Ethan's heart like a warm arrow. He took a breath, then stepped onto the glowing path. They followed it into the corridor. The walls began to pulse with old light, reacting to their presence. The air grew warmer. Ahead, an exit. A giant stone door, with markings of both alien and human hands. Ethan placed his palm on the center. The door hissed open slowly. Sunlight poured in. Not rain, not darkness, but clear, bright sun. Outside, tall alien trees waved in the wind. A small valley lay below, and in it, movement. Tents, smoke trails. People, not machines, not slavers, but survivors. Dozens of alien families turned toward the open gate as Ethan, Vera, and Rin stepped out. A gasp spread through the crowd. They recognized the markings on Vera's arms, and the fire in her eyes. And they saw the boy, the last child of the royal blood. But most of all, they saw the human who stood between them, holding both their hands. Someone shouted in the native tongue. Others stepped forward. The crowd opened. A new circle formed around them. Ethan stood tall, unsure of what came next, but ready to face it. Because this time he wasn't alone. He had Vera. He had Rin. And now, he had a purpose. 3 weeks later, Ethan worked in a small village just beyond the old valley. His hands were black with grease, fixing power lines. But every time he turned, a child ran to hug his leg. Rin laughed freely now. Vera worked with the elders, helping others who had been hidden or wounded. Their new life had begun, not perfect, but full of light. One evening, as the sun set, Vera stood beside Ethan on a hill. Rin slept in her arms. "You could have left," she said softly. "Why did you stay?" Ethan smiled. "I didn't find shelter in a cave," he said. He looked at her. I found home.